So we can use docker pull command to pull the images. Okay, and then once it is pulled, you can use the docker image inspect. Okay, so as I said, inspect command will work for all the containers, volumes, networks, images. Okay, and if you pass the image name as the argument, okay, followed by any sort of tag, so you'll get the metadata of the image. So we said that so we have to take care about the two such instructions inside the inspect output. One is the command, the other one is the entry point. Okay, so we'll talk about this command and entry point a little deeper. Okay, so once we come to the docker file. Okay, so before understanding the cmd and entry point, so I want you to understand that docker container is nothing but a process. Okay, so when you do host name as the command, if you run host name, it is nothing but it is a process that is started, and then this process this command will be executed inside that process, and then the process gets killed. Okay, so every container should have a process. That means that I mean, we cannot have any kind of a docker image without any process. Okay, because without any process it doesn't do anything, right? So it is of no use. Okay, so every image will have a process, so that process will be mentioned in the cmd here. Okay, so let's say I have a docker image that will just ping the google dns servers to test the internet connectivity. Okay, so this is nothing but it is a command. So once you create a container out of a docker image, if the docker image has this as the starting process, so the container will run this process. Okay, so from where I can find all these commands, so it is in the inspect output. So command and entry point usually work together. Okay, so either you give the command prompt or you give the entry point, both I mean alone. Okay, if you give both together, so the final output will be entry point. Okay, space command. Okay, it is like the addition of entry point and command. Okay, understood? Any doubt till this point? Okay, still we are going to revise. Okay, so if you have entry point and command together in any docker image, okay, so both of them will be appended. Understood, guys?
Okay, Vikram,
So
can
in
you
this
explain
case,
what is entry point?
yeah, so we'll come back to entry point later. Okay, just
Okay.
imagine if I use host name as the starting process, either you put it in the command section or you put it in the entry point section. Okay, so if you put
Okay. Okay.
both, right? Okay, let's say I want to run this as the starting process. Okay, if you put ping in the entry point section and this ip address inside the command section, so as I said, if both are there, so the final output or the final process will be entry point plus command. So in this case, what will be the output? It is ping space
In 8.8.
8.8.8. Okay, so you can separate anything. Let's say you wanted to list the contents of your etc directory. Let's say ls/etc. Okay, so you can put ls in the entry point and then /etc in the cmd section. Okay, or else if you want to use both of them in the same place, use cmd ls/etc in the command section only, or else you put everything in the entry point. Understood? So there is an
Okay.
in-depth understanding needed. We'll come back to it later. Okay, so in most of the cases, entry point won't be there in the demo containers which we use. So only you can see about the cmd. Then we use docker run command to spin a container out of the image. So using docker run, let's say an nginx image. Okay, so if this is the case, your nginx container will be started, but it will be started with some random name. Okay, if you want to give the name to a container, so what is the uh, uh, thing that you're going to use?
What's the question?
Guys, so I'm saying if you use docker run nginx, so it will start the nginx container out of this nginx image. Okay, but it will generate a random name for this container, right? So I want to have a unique name to the container. Okay, so I
Docker
can give
run
hyphen
hyphen name web. Yeah,
any name. Okay, and then I wanted to run it in the background mode, so use
hyphen
hyphen
D.
t. Okay, understood.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so hyphen d, and then okay, so this Nginx
IP.
container by default runs in the port 80, right?
Yeah.
Correct, guys?
Yes.
Maninder?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it runs on port 80. So if you want to access this container from outside world, so what you have to do, you have to use hyphen p, which is nothing but the
P
port mapping, and then
80 8080.
okay. So what is the first 80?
First 80 will be the Nginx container port.
Okay, next 80.
Will be the access which we can access. Suppose if you need to change that port to 80 or some other custom port, we can able to access. Is it correct? I didn't know.
Yeah, Maninder, your version of the answer.
So I think if you're 80 is the default one, and the next 80 is you can make it 50, and you would change it to 50.
No, it is exactly opposite. So the next one is your container port.
Hmm.
Okay, the first one is your host port. So this one you change it with any port number that you wish. But the container port, okay, so this port is already defined inside the Nginx application. Okay, so simply changing it here, it won't go and change your application, right? It doesn't work like that. So someone has to change it in the configuration, then rebuild the image, something like that. Okay, so only this standard, the second one is the standard port and the first one is the host port. So this one you decide yourself. Okay, understood, guys?
So
Yeah.
the reason that you might want to change it is because your 80 port for your server you might be using it for something else. Is that why?
No. See, the thing is the container ports I can have same port running for multiple
Applic
Docker containers. Okay,
oh,
so that is the so advantage that Docker is bringing to the table. Okay, so the thing is, let's say if this is your machine, okay, it's your big host machine, so I can have a container like this, so that I can have multiple containers and each container can run on 80 port. Okay, so they can have 80 ports always running. So the reason is every container is like your VM, right? So there is no collision,
mhm,
correct? But all containers are running on the host machine. So if some process is running on 80, I cannot use 80 for some other process. That means if something is already running on 80, I cannot use it. So that's why I use 8081. Okay, so if this container port, if I want to expose it outside, I can map it to 180 port because this is free port.
mhm.
Okay, so using hyphen p 80 colon 80. So the first one is this, the next one is this. Next, since 80 port is already exposed by one of the container, I should use some other port like 81 or 8080. So using hyphen p 8080 colon 80. Similarly, the next one. Okay, so that's the reason why I can have n number of containers running on the same port. Okay, so imagine if containers are not there, if all the processors are to run on the same host machine. Okay, let's say I have Python application, Ruby application, Java application. Okay, if Python application is running on 80, I cannot run Ruby application on 80, so I use 81. Okay, so if Java is wants to run on 80 or 81, it can't run, so I use 82. So imagine there is one more Python process I want to run on 80 port. It is not possible, right? So I use 83. Okay, but if you see here, all these containers can be Python based, but all are running on 80. Correct.
Mhm.
This is not possible if you're doing it on a single host machine. That's a advantage that Docker is bringing to the table.
See, what's the top ones? That's so
Yeah.
what that's what I was
Okay.
asking, right? So
Yeah.
each
See.
physical AWS server is going to have only 180 output port. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. See, for every process running inside the host machine, right? So there is a port assigned. Okay, so why port is needed is, let's say I'm running a Python based application which is running on port 5000.
Mhm.
Okay, I have two such containers. So there is one Nginx reverse proxy Nginx web server running on 80. So there is one SSH server which is running on 22.
Mhm.
Okay, so I am running all these as the containers. That's the reason why I can have two different containers running on the same machine, same port number.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say imagine there is a user. Okay, so user has to access this particular application. Okay, we have 1 2 3 and 4. Okay, so the traffic always comes to the IP address,
Mhm.
right? So that means that for all these containers, there is they are running on the same host, so there is only one IP address.
Correct.
So when you request something, the request comes to this IP address, that means to this host machine. Okay, when you wanted to access this third container or third application which is nothing but your web application, how is your system going to forward your traffic which is coming to your machine to internal process,
Mhm. Let's
right?
just go to port 80. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, it has to send to 80. So
Mhm.
it has to send to 80. You're saying it has to send to 80. Okay, that means that when you're sending the request, you're saying send it to 80.
Correct.
Okay, imagine I'm asking you to send it to port 5000.
Mhm.
So the request comes to this IP, then it wants to send to the port 5000, but unfortunately there are two such applications running on port 5000.
Mhm.
Correct.
Mhm.
It can't do, right?
Mhm. Of course. Yeah.
That's why we have a port numbers that are for the machine, not for the containers. Containers will have port numbers, but in order to access these containers from outside, you can't do it, right? Because these are inside the machine.
Mm.
So that's why what we'll do, we'll take this 5000 and we just map it to some external port 80.
Okay. Let me
That
ask you,
means use,
yeah,
yeah, yes, please.
who is responsible for generating these dynamically? And number two is the machine going to be able to do, let's say if there's like tens of thousands of processes running, is the machine going to be able to do that by itself and give it n number of ports physically so that the traffic can continue to go to the right place?
Yeah, it's you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Okay, so you have port numbers from 0 to 65,535.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you decide on which port number you want your application to run. For Java, see, for some application there are standard ports 8080. For for a Tomcat server, for Nginx it is 80. For DNS server it is 53.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for SSH it is 22. These are standardized so that people will identify by seeing the port number, they will know what sort of application it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are some standards, but it doesn't mean I have to use only 22. Internally, you can go to the configuration and I can change my SSH port to 24, okay, or any other port number. Okay, so usually if SSH runs on port 22, right? So it becomes easy target for the attackers because attackers always know that SSH will run on 22.
Mm-hmm.
If you change it to 224, so it becomes very difficult for them because they try to attack a service which is running on 22, but the service is not available. They'll think that SSH itself is not there, but we are running SSH on a different port.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now this port mapping, why it is needed is, so internally I can have n number of applications with the similar port numbers, but for the outside user, the request will only come to this layer which is still the host machine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he can only reach to a specific port number on the host, but in order to go to dedicated application running inside the cluster, I have to map that port. That means that it is a link. Okay, it is an input link. Sorry, it is one side of the pipe and this is the other side of the pipe. One side of the pipe is the host port, the other side of the pipe is the container port. So now there is a unique combination 80 and 5000. Now
So
there is a
one more.
process run.
Mhm. One
Hmm.
more question. is if you have like a an application like Instagram running on containers, right? It's almost impossible, depending on how much queries you're gonna get. It's almost impossible for somebody on the back end to be like, I'm gonna launch it on this port and this port. So how does that work?
Yeah, see, Instagram, when it wants to actually serve the traffic, right? So there is a front end, okay, there is a database, so there is a
Mhm.
middleware, so all these are running as individual containers.
Mhm.
Okay, these are all running on individual containers, everything is containers. Okay,
Because of
so when
microservice.
user wants to access this particular, okay, so he enters www.instagram.com, let's say.
Mhm.
Okay, so the request will be redirected to an IP address.
Mhm.
Okay, so here it redirects only to the IP address, not on a different port. So always it will be 80 or 443.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's why we use only IP address, not any port number. That means if it is running on 80 or 443, you can ignore the port number. But if it is running on 8080, you should use IP colon that port number. Okay, so now Instagram application server, it is serving the traffic on particular IP address, which is resolving to your this DNS name.
Mhm.
Okay, now the user traffic will come here.
Mhm.
Okay, so the user traffic will come on the port 80. Now let's say internally this application may be running, the front end may be running on 5000 port.
Mhm.
Okay, so for forwarding the traffic that is coming, originating, that is coming till 80 to
Mhm.
internally to the cluster, there should be port mapping -p 85,000.
Mhm. Just for the front end part, and then there would be another
Yeah.
one
So
for the
once the front end receives the traffic, internally it will redirect. So
oh,
that logic, it is application oriented, but this is not the exact case actually. Okay. So the real thing comes in the form of the load balancer. So here we'll have a load balancer called application load balancer.
mm,
Okay. And there are different instances of your front ends running. Okay, so there are multiple replicas of your front ends, databases, middlewares, etc. Okay,
mhm.
so when the user traffic comes, it will come till the load balancer. Now the load balancer will forward the request to different front end instances, so that if there are 5000 users, right? Okay,
Mhm.
first request it will send to this front end, second request it might send to some other front end. So depending upon the user load, okay, so the traffic coming to the load balancer, so it can increase the instances so that there is no load on a specific instance, or else
Mhm.
it can decrease the instances when there is no user traffic, generally during the early hours, right? So what happens, no, there won't be any much user traffic. Okay, in this case, so I can run only 3 replicas of the front end because there is no user traffic, so that I can serve the I can save some cost on the infrastructure. Okay, it during the peak hours, like the during afternoons or evening time, so many people will use the Instagram. So in this case I will increase the replicas to either 10, so that I can have so more users can access my application without any delays or buffers.
Mhm.
Okay,
So the
so
load
this is the
balance,
actual,
the load balance is the one that's actually mounted onto that port number.
yeah. So load balancer, what it will do is it will just take a request and it will send that request to the multiple instances.
Mhm.
Okay, it is like a single-ended pipe, but output it will have multiple outlets. There is
Mhm.
only one inlet, but outlet will be shared. So depending upon this load, the number of outlets will be increased. So the user traffic enters into one end, but the outgoing traffic will be splitted.
Mhm. So
Okay,
basically, that traffic is split on the number of microservices within that application, right?
correct. So all these applications are running as microservices. So we have multiple instances of the microservice, like front end, you have multiple instances, database, you have multiple instances. So depending upon the requirement and the architecture, how you are going to design. Understood, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is about the port mapping. Okay, and then after port mapping, okay, so what we did is, see, I can show you now. Okay, so why not just okay. See, what I'm doing here is I'm running Nginx container. So instead of running 9090, let us put to 90. Okay, and then enter. So the Nginx container will be started. So this time, if I do docker ps, that means it is the running containers. Okay, so let me use the head. Okay, if it is head means it will just display the first 10 lines. Okay, so if you want to display only first two lines, head hyphen and two, okay, it will display the first two lines. Okay, so when I run that container, so you can see this is the image it has used, and this is the port mapping. Now see the port mapping. So what this port mapping will indicate is, okay, so what command we run, we ran 9090 and 80. Okay, so what it is saying, if the request is coming on in, this IP address colon port number on the host machine, I will redirect to 80 port. Okay,
Mm.
so
Then
now how do,
the other way around, like 80 is going to 90,
sorry,
because we were saying that the initial number is 80 and then now we're making it 90, right?
yeah, here this is the host port. Host port can be anything. It's up to you. But this
Mhm,
is the container port which I cannot change.
mhm.
Okay.
Now the bottom line, what does that mean again? Can you? Sorry, I didn't follow
So
that.
see, the bottom line is, in order to access this container which is running on port 80 inside the cluster or inside your Docker machine, so I should use the 90 port. Okay, that means that I'll go to the browser. Okay, and then I will use the IP address. Okay, some IP address colon 90 I should use.
Hmm.
Okay, what is that IP address? IP address of your Docker machine, the public IP address. So in my case, okay, I will find it out like this. But in your case, it should be your EC2 instances IP address.
Hmm.
Okay, in my case, this is different. So I'll be using this IP address of my machine. Okay,
Okay,
see here.
got it.
Okay, so now let us try one more case. Okay, so I'll remove this running container using Docker rm -f, and either the name of the container, which is web, or the ID of the container, which is this. Okay, I'll be using the the name of the container. The reason why I'm using a -f for forcing is the container is in the running state. Okay, if you see the status, it is up. That's why I'm force removing it. Okay,
Mhm.
now instead of running on port 90, okay, I'll also show you. Okay, so I'll show you one thing. Okay, first one container I've ran on 90. So if you run the same command, okay, with a different container name, because same container name should not exist. So I'm running on I'm changing the container name to web2. Okay, but I'm putting the ports, I'm using the same ports. And if you try to enter, see here, what is the response?
Port is already allocated.
Port is already allocated. That means one of the process is exposed on 90. You cannot expose one more port on one more application on 90. Understood?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
what I'll do is, again I'll use docker rm-f and web2 to remove the existing container, the second container. Now instead of 90, I will use 91. This time it will work. Okay, now I'll go to the browser. In order to access the first application, I should use 90. In order to access the second application, I should use 90, 91.
Instead
It's
of
like,
instead of 91, you can pick any number between 0 and 63,500, whatever that
yeah,
number was.
zero. Usually, some port numbers are not supported. Okay, so we have to start from, I think, 80. Okay,
Mhm.
so we can just see. I'm not sure. I've not tried it before, but if you use 01, I'm not sure. See, okay, container 2 is already running. Okay, let us now see web3. So let's see if 01 is actually working or not by going to the browser and then just seeing 01. Okay, see, okay, so some ports are not supported. Okay, you have to I think start from 80, so that is the starting port number. So let us try to do it from 79. Even I think this is not supported, but again I have to name it with a different container. Okay, then if I try to access it on 79, I'm not sure. Okay, see, 79 is also not working. If you do 80, 80 also won't work because we are not running any container on 80 port number.
Mhm.
Okay, 1 second, please. We are not running on 80 because we have started from 90, right? So I can now run it on by changing the container name and then by changing it to 80. So now I have one more container which is running on 80.
Mhm.
Okay, see, right? So
Mhm.
this is how you port map. Okay, so one of the interviews they asked this question. Okay, so your container is running but the user is not able to accept the traffic or access the application. So the first issue could be he's not using this port mapping. That's why he's not able to access the application which is running inside the Docker host. So the second one will be, so he has not opened this port 90 in the security groups. So if you remember in the EC2, so there is a firewall type of security group, right?
Yes.
So in that security group, we have to open this 90. In that case, only your AWS instance will allow 90 traffic. So there are two possible reasons. One is port mapping is not done properly and the security groups are not configured properly. Okay. So now moving forward. So I have one more example. So if I run Docker, did we talk about -IT?
Yeah, it's like giving access to the interactive terminal like keyboard.
Yeah. So okay. So let me repeat it. Okay. So if I just see the starting process of a Ubuntu container, okay. So guys, I wanted to remove all these Nginx containers. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll use Docker rm -f. So I'll use web one. Okay. So I can give multiple names like this, right?
But there will be
I
the
can.
command like prune.
Okay. So web one is not there. Okay. So it is throwing an error, but other containers are removed. Okay. So let us inspect. Okay. So by using Docker inspect, I wanted to inspect the Ubuntu image, okay, or else the lightweighted one, I wanted to see the Alpine image. Okay, if you see the Alpine image and see the command section. So what is the command this Alpine image has? So the command is, so if I simplify it, right? So if I remove all the extra codes and this stuff, right?
So,
It
so
is this.
just a question. This image is sitting in your AWS machine, right? You've saved
Yeah,
it.
yeah, in your Docker host, correct. So if
You
you don't have, so it will
from
give throw an error, then use Docker pull.
okay.
Okay, so now when you inspect it, so it is saying cmd as bin by bash. Okay, if you inspect the Ubuntu image, right? Docker image inspect Ubuntu, and then if you, I can directly grep for a cmd. Okay, because instead of seeing the whole thing, okay, cmd is not cmd, it is capital C. I think so the naming convention is like this, cmd. Okay, so if you don't know the exact the letter cases, I can use -I, okay, to search for the case independent strings. Okay, see here the command in case of the Ubuntu, it is bash. Okay, so that means that these are all the shell processes, these are all the terminals. Okay, so in order to access the terminal, right, so what all I should have. Okay, see, if I'm logging into my Ubuntu or the EC2 instance, I'm seeing the terminal in my monitor, right?
Yeah,
And also when I'm typing some commands inside the terminal, I have the keyboard to type, right?
yeah, correct.
So when we are starting some containers which are having bash or shell as the starting process, they expect at least terminal access. Okay, that means the display access and the keyboard access, so that they can show the terminal to the user, and also when the user tries to give some commands, it can show, it can take that input. Okay, simply running docker run ubuntu. Okay, I wanted to give it a name as OS. So it's simply running like this container. Okay, OS is already running, so let us remove the existing one using docker rm -f OS. And if I run the same, so simply running like this, it will start your container, but immediately if you do docker ps-a, so you see that the container is exited. Okay, so why this is exited? The reason is the command which is it is running is bash. That means that bash expects, okay, -it options. -it means -i means interactive input, okay, or the standard in, okay, we call it as input standard in, okay, and a terminal access. Okay, so what is terminal access is -it. Okay, so -it means sudo terminal, which is gty, so that, okay, it can show the terminal for you. Okay, so that's why we have to use -i -t. Okay, so this, since this container is already running, I'll remove it. Then when I'm starting the ubuntu container again, so I'll give it display access using -t, terminal access. That means I'm giving it the TTY access so that it can show the terminal for me. Why it is showing the terminal? Because the command itself is bash. So if I run the command like this, see, it gave its terminal. That means that it is similar to SSHing into this particular container. Okay, so now if I try to give some input, right, I can't give, because I gave the terminal access, or the like the display access, to show this terminal prompts, but I have not given the input access so that it can take the keyboard inputs, right? So now I can't do anything, I'm completely blocked. So the best way is open the another terminal session and close it, because that particular terminal will not respond anymore. Okay, because it is not taking my keyboard input. So if I just do docker ps-a and first two lines, so it is going to what happened? Okay, docker is not running. 1 second. So this is I have to do for the minikube cluster. Okay, now see, the container status is running. Okay, understood? But I'm not able to access
Yeah.
this content because there is no keyboard input. So let us just remove it first. Now I'll start it again. Okay, using docker run, okay, -i -t both, or else you can combine using -t. And again, name of the container I wanted to give you as OS, and then the name of the image is ubuntu. So this time it will fall to the bash prompt. Now it can also take the commands from the keyboard. So this is the host name of the container. So from the container I can see anything. I wanted to do ls on the file system. So this is the file system inside the container. Okay, I wanted to create a directory called DevOps. Okay, if you do ls, see DevOps is there. Okay, I wanted to do anything, like I wanted to echo hello. Okay, so I'm doing it inside the container because the starting process is bash. So now I wanted to come out of this terminal. That means I wanted to come out of the container. So there are two ways. So first one is doing exit. But if you're doing exit, what happens is you're coming out of the terminal. That means that you're killing the terminal. So killing the terminal means you're killing the only process that is running inside the container. Okay,
Would it
understood, guys?
save the make dir the, or would it just delete it when the container is deleted?
Sorry.
you know how you said you made a folder named DevOps? Would it will be deleted, right, when the container gets deleted?
Yeah, it's get deleted exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you do exit, the container won't be deleted as of now. Okay, because the container is in the stopped state. Okay, it is in exited state, but it is not deleted yet. But once you use docker rm command to delete, the container will delete, taking down all the contents with it. Okay. Okay. So and then what we said, yeah. So this is about the running the container using -it. Now let us see running custom commands. Okay, so earlier when we were starting the container like this, we were running the default command, right? We are just starting the default command. If you want to what is the default command? It is bash. Okay, how did we come to know about this? Using docker image inspect. Okay, so now I want to replace this bash to another command known as hostname. So when you're doing docker run, at the last you can give a command, so that will go and replace the default command. So now if I run this, so it is saying OS is already there. So let us remove it. Okay, and then if I just do okay, see here it printed the host name, right? And then
Yeah.
this process is completed. That means that if I do docker ps-a, I should see that the container is exited state.
The host name is the name of the container.
Container. So when the container is started, a particular host name will be injected.
Hmm.
Okay, so that will be exactly equal to this name only.
Okay.
Okay, so this is about running a process. So yeah, and one more thing is, let's imagine a scenario like this. Okay, so we have EC2 instances, we have a Jenkins application running. Okay, so every night, since there will be zero user traffic, I wanted to shut down my EC2 instance. Okay, so I'll do that, and every morning I will start the EC2 instances. But the problem is, once you shut down your EC2 instance, all the running containers will go to the stopped state. Okay, but when you restart your EC2 instance, the stopped containers will not be automatically restarted. Okay, so you have to manually go and start each and every container. Okay, but I don't want to have this kind of a scenario. Instead, what I'll do is, when I'm running a container like this, I'll use a flag known as --hyphen restart is equal to always. Okay, so in this case, what happens is, if the container fails, stops, okay, due to any reason, okay, the reason could be a faulty process or a process completion. That means a process completed successfully. Okay, and the container went to exit state. Okay, that is also okay an issue. Okay, not an issue, that is also treated as exit. Okay, let's say the process itself is failed and the container got exited, so that is also an exit state. Okay, so exit state of 0 indicates, okay, the container exited with the positive success code, positive code. That means that container successfully ran the command. Okay, let's see, I wanted to run a command. Okay, that command is not existing, so I made a typo like this, and then I ran. Okay, so OS is already running. Let me delete it first. Okay, so I'm running a wrong command. Okay, now see here, when there is a wrong command, what container did? Container said that this particular command is not there. Okay, if I just do docker get the information. Okay, see, it is saying container got created but it never ran because the command is wrong. Okay, in case if the command is not running properly, or if it is giving some errors, okay, so in this case your exit code will have a different value, like -1 or 221. Okay, something like this. Understood, guys?
Yeah, Vikram.
Yeah, so that is for the hyphen restart. Okay, so yeah, we haven't talked about hyphen restart. So let me delete the existing container. Okay, so when we are talking about the host name, running the host name as the process, so this process is bound to be completed, right? It will complete, after some time. Okay, so I don't want the container, okay, to stay in the stopped state once it is exited. So I want it to restart automatically, okay, once it is exited. So in this case, what I'll do, I'll use hyphen restart is equal to always, so that the stopped containers will always start. Okay, why I'm saying it will stop is because host name is a custom command. It will stop after successfully executing. Correct, guys?
Yeah.
So if I run it like this, okay, and if you do docker uh, ps hyphen a, so you can see it is restarting. That
See,
means it.
I have a question. So why do we have the hyphen IT in this command line? We're not going into the container, right? We're just
Yeah,
starting it.
so this is not going into the container. See, here it is not needed, okay, because we are using a custom command. So you are correct. Okay, you don't have to put a hyphen it. So okay, so I'll prove this by using by removing the container and by running the same one, okay, without hyphen it. So that is true. Okay, hyphen it is not needed for everything.
Hmm.
Okay, it
Okay.
will work. See, it is restarting. That means if this container fails due to any reason, it keeps on restarting. That means, let's say this container is running successfully, okay, and then you shut down your reset instance. So next time when you switch on it, when you bring it on, okay, so it will automatically bring the container back to the starting state. That means the running state.
This is basically like boot process, right?
It is not boot. It is not boot process. Actually, the container will come to the running state
Mhm.
again because I used restart as always.
Mhm. So when the machine is shut down, right, then you cannot.
So usually we don't shut down. Okay, so let's say during our learning activity, so what we are doing is we are running the Jenkins container. Okay, so this Jenkins container, instead of using free resources, I'm using the uh, a very a good machine with the higher configuration. Okay, so I don't want to run it 24/7 because it will cost me a lot of money
Right.
during my learning stage. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll run a Jenkins container using hyphen restart is equal to always. I'll work with it for 1 hour, then I shut down the EC2 instance. Now when I turn it on, when I restart it, I will not again go to I will not again start the container using Docker start
Mm.
because it will automatically restart.
So in an enterprise setting, they never
Yeah,
let go of the
exactly.
Amazon EC2
Ex-
machine. They never
yeah,
terminate.
yeah. In this case also, you can put restart is equal to always. Okay. So what are the other options? Okay, so the other options is restart on failure.
Mhm.
Okay, what is restart on failure is, so if this command exited successfully, that means that it is not failure, it is success. In that case, your container won't be restarted. Okay, if I use, okay, I'll show you that option as well because I wanted to restart Docker containers only when there is a failure. Okay, so there are three, not three, I think there are only, okay, why this dark mode came? There are two options. One second, guys. It's not going back. I'll show you from the official documentation. Yeah, Docker run. Okay, so here inside the Docker run, somewhere they'll give the hyphen restart option. Yeah, see here, hyphen restart. So I will have the explanation to it in the same documentation. Yeah, see here. Okay, so I'll give you this link also. I'm sharing in the chat. Okay, so it's an interesting thing to read. Sorry. Okay, what it says is there are 4 different options. Okay, so the first one is no. That means that never restart the failed containers. Okay, if it is exited,
Okay.
let it be. In another case, always. That means that always restart the container regardless of the exit status. That means if the container failed due to a reason, restart it. If the container successfully exited, restart it. Okay, now there is one more, unless stopped. That means that until unless someone stopped it, okay, by using docker stop command, don't restart it. Okay, that means that someone accidentally used docker stop to stop the container. In that case, you restart it. But in the other cases like the automatic exit and all, you don't restart it. Okay, now the other one, on failure. That means if the container is failed due to an issue, then only you restart it. If the container is successful in executing a particular process or running a process, so that is not a failure, that is a success. But a container has to run an infinite process. Okay, but it doesn't mean that it has to run some unnecessary process, right? A process is something that you do some useful work for us. So if the process is completed after running our required logic, so that should be considered as a success, not the failure. So in this case, restart the container on failure only, not on the success. Understood? Okay, in production, mostly we use always, so that your containers are always running in the production without any time. Understood, guys?
Mhm.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so these are these are very small things, but these make major difference. Okay, so these things only set us apart because only few people will explore the documentation in depth. Okay. And then one more thing. Okay, so I wanted to run a process. Okay, so that process is bound to be completed. Okay, so that means that I'll run something, docker run -it. Okay, -it is not needed. I will name this container as some, okay, some C1. I wanted to run the Alpine container, but inside the Alpine container I want to run a process known as echo hello. Okay, right? I'll just copy this and I'll run it. So what it will do, it will start the Alpine container and inside it will run the echo hello command. It is printing hello. But if you do the docker ps-a, it is in the exited state. So what I will do, so I will manually remove it like this, docker rm. So the name of the container is C1. So I'll use C1. Okay. So every time, okay, running the container and then deleting the stopped container, it is not, easier for me because I don't want to track all the exited containers and then removing each and everything. Okay, so what I'll do is if I want to run some temporary containers that does one process for me, so why not automatically remove them once they are executed. So this time I'll use --rm option. So that means I'm saying if the container is exited, you automatically remove it. Okay, this time I'm using the same one. I ran this container. It executed the task. It is designated to run. Then if you do docker ps-a, that container is no more, because what I said, you run some command and then default behavior is it goes to exited state. But using -rm as the option, I'm saying if the container is executed due to any issue, remove it. Okay, and one more thing here. never use -rm and -restart is equal to always, because it won't work. Okay, because in one condition I'm saying if the container is failed, you restart it. But in another condition I'm
Yeah.
saying the container is failed, remove it. I'm contradicting my own statements, right?
Yeah.
Right? So if I do this, see here, conflicting options. Understood, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so these are the various commands you can see in the Docker. So since we have time, okay, so I'm going to talk. So we have time, right? So can we continue for another 20
Yeah. Yeah. We can
minutes?
continue.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll talk about a new topic where I'll log in into the container. I'll modify the container by adding some external packages. Okay, and then I'll see if these external packages are getting retained or not. Okay, so how will I do it? First of all, I take the Ubuntu container by using docker run -it, and the name of the container I wanted to give it as C1. Okay, and then I'll start the Ubuntu image. Okay, so simple, easy. Okay, so I'll use apt update -i to update the packages inside the container. Okay, remember we are already inside the container and we are running the command inside the container. Okay,
So apt is the utility for Ubuntu, right? That's like yum update or
yeah, if it is CentOS, you should be doing yum.
okay.
And then after it updates this packages, right? So what I'll do is I'll install a binary known as Figlet.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a popular one. I think everyone seen it somewhere in the videos and all. Okay, so I'll
Well,
use
what,
apt
this
install.
question, why are binaries called binaries? Is it because it's in the machine readable form? Is that why?
Yeah, yeah, correct. Yes, binary is because it is in a zeros and ones format.
Okay.
That's why we put all the binaries in the bin folder. Bin itself is a binary. It is a by value.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, I use apt install Figlet, Figlet. So what is this Figlet? Figlet will do is, okay. So if you just run the Figlet followed by any name, let's say DevOps, okay, it will generate a some ASCII art like this. It is an ASCII art.
Mhm.
Okay, you can give any name like this, you know, something like this. So it will give you that value. Okay, now these changes are inside the container. Okay, so if I exit, right, what happens? I'm the killing the only process. That is fine. Okay, the container goes to the exited state. Okay, so in order to avoid this, I use Control PQ so that the contain I am coming out of the containers bash process. But if I do Docker PS, so the container is already running. Okay, so try this. So after doing this, you remove this container using docker rm-f, then start the container. Okay, why not we do it now? Okay, what I'm doing, I am removing this container C1. Okay, removed. So again, I'll run the same command initially which I've used. I'm in the terminal. This time I'll try to use the Figlet utility that I have downloaded. So it is not there
Yeah.
because these changes are inside the container.
Container.
Okay, so now what I'll do is I use a command known as commit. Okay, so if you want to know what is commit, use docker help and search for something known as commit. So what this commit says is create a new image from a container or container changes, whatever. Okay, that means I'm running a container. Okay, I'm modifying something by updating the container like this.
So does it always have the previous version of Ubuntu? I have to update it every time.
Yeah, it's up to you. See, they update only the required packages. If you want to update the other packages, no, see, this is not about updating the package. So it is like you are updating the index. That means that, so these remote repositories, right, they keep updating with the latest releases, right, with the different packages. Okay, when they launch a container, so okay, so they will not have the updated information, right, because the information is in the some other server. So when you do apt update, it is like as we discussed earlier, right? Okay, so earlier, let's say there are, in your WhatsApp there are 100 of your friends using the WhatsApp. Okay, you have added few more contacts in your phone book, and then if you go to the WhatsApp, you will still see the 100 contacts because you have not updated the contacts list.
Hmm.
Okay, so you have to go to your WhatsApp settings and then you have to refresh your contacts, right? It is the
Hmm.
same thing. You are refreshing your package so that this your container will know what are the latest packages available in the remote repositories.
Yeah. No, what I was asking is why does the container not go to this directly? Why do we have to do this manually? The update
I
part.
didn't get the question. Update part, because I wanted to know, see, without updating, if I wanted to do apt figlet, apt install figlet, that figlet location may not be knowing for my container. If I
Mm.
update, so the container will know from where to fetch this figlet.
Mm.
Okay, so now I'm installing the figlet. Okay, so and then I'll test it by using figlet devops. Okay, so it will print. Now what I want to do is I want to save all these changes. Okay, so before saving, first I want to exit from this container using control PQ. Okay, so I'm exiting from this container, and then if you do docker ps, so you'll see the container as the running state. Okay, so in order to save the changes, okay, of it's like this. See, sometimes you cannot save something if it is in the running state, right? Okay, understood, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you wanted to take the backup of a particular folder. If that particular folder is continuously getting populated with some other contents because someone issued a copy command into that folder, you cannot take the backup because you have to stop the copy first. You have to then take the backup. Okay, similarly, if the container is in the running state, you cannot take the snapshot. Okay, you have to stop it and then take the snapshot. That's why we will use docker stop command and id or the name of the container to stop it first. Then if you do docker ps hyphen a, so you can see that the container is exited. Now I wanted to save all these changes, so use docker commit. Which containers changes you wanted to commit? Ubuntu container, what is its name? C1. How I am going to commit it? Like, I'm committing the container changes as a new docker image. What docker image I wanted to give? So I wanted to give a name known as piglet underscore ubuntu, and I wanted to also tag it with 1.0. Okay, what did I just do?
So we have created an image, new image.
Sorry.
We have created a new image with those changes
Yeah, with
in that
the
container.
container. That means that I've saved all the containers changes as a new image. That means that if you do docker image list, okay, you will get that image. But what I'm doing is I'm just grepping so that I'll get the exact image because I don't want to get that complete list. Okay, Docker image ls. So what happened? Let me just grab for Figlet. See here. There, right? Figlet Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second, guys. Let me remove the other things. It will create confusion for you. Let me remove the previously created commands. Now, if you do Docker image ls and grep for that image, see, this is the new image, correct?
Yes.
Now, I'll remove the old stopped container C1. Okay. Now, I will run one more container C1 just like earlier, but instead of using Ubuntu image, I use my custom image, which is
Figlet Ubuntu.
Figlet image 1.0. This time again I'll be moved to the same terminal because I have not changed the starting process. Starting process is bash. Now if I just do Figlet, it will be there. See, I have not updated any package index. I have not installed any Figlet. I've done it in the older container and then I've committed all these changes as a new image. Now I'm using this new image to spin up containers.
Okay.
And
Understood?
this image is always going to stay in your machine, right? Because it's
Machine. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'm going to exit it because I don't want run it. Now I want to push it to the remote repository. Okay, so let me log out from the Docker login first. Okay, otherwise it will create confusion. Okay, so as I said, in order to push any images to your repository, so you have to rename it to your own Docker Hub account. Okay, so if I just go to my Docker Hub account and log in, so I can see my username here. This is my username. So this Figlet Ubuntu image, right? Okay, you have to modify it like this. So you have to append your Docker Hub account name and slash. Okay, so this is the old name. New name,
Okay.
you are appending your account name. Okay, when you're renaming it, so you can also rename your tag also. It is up to you. Okay, instead of 1.0 you put 2.0. It's no problem. Okay, you can use same tag. Okay, but how do you rename? So there is a command called docker tag. Okay, docker tag, old image name followed by the new image name. Enter. So that name is tagged. Now if you do docker image ls and then grep for Figlet, so you will be seeing the two images. One is the image which I've created and the another image which is renamed. And if you see the container IDs, right, both are same. That means that these are just like mirror images. They have the same information. Only thing is I'm calling it with a different name.
Okay.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
I want to push this image to my Docker Hub account. So using Docker push, okay, and the name of the container followed by the tag. So if you see, I'm pushing the image which is tagged with my Docker Hub account. Now if you try to push, what happens is it will fail because Docker CLI doesn't know anything about this user account. So we have to use Docker login. Okay, so if you do Docker login and enter, it is going to ask for your username, which is your user name, and then password to your Docker Hub account. Then if you enter both correctly, it will say that login succeeded. So once you are logged in, you don't have to log in every time, okay, because it is a one-time activity. Now if you do Docker push and the name of your image, it will automatically push. Since this is a public repository, so from your system, if you use Docker pull and this image name, so that will be pulled onto your machine. Okay, so this is successfully pushed. So if I go back to my Docker Hub account and if I refresh it, so I can see that Figlet image. So it is not updated. See Figlet Ubuntu, which is pushed just now, updated a few minutes ago. And if you click on it, you can see the various tags information. If you go to tags, so I pushed it 1.0 as the tag. Okay, so let me retag it one more time. Okay, so what I'll do is, so I'll take the same my image name only. Okay, I use Docker tag. This is the old name, right? So instead of 1.0, I also want to retag it with the latest tag. Sorry guys, wrong. Instead of 1.0, I wanted to use latest tag. I just renamed it. Okay, but if you use Docker image ls and see the list of image, you will find all three: the original image, the retagged with 1.0, and retagged with latest. Now when I'm pushing Docker image, Docker push, I'll push the latest tag this time. But already this information is with the Docker. That means there is nothing new that I'm pushing. So that's why it is saying layer already exists. But if you refresh your page, right, your repository, so it will now have two different tags, 1.2 and latest. Understood, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'll do now, I'll just remove all these images using Docker RMI. Okay, see, all images has the same ID, right? Because these are nothing but these are copies. Okay, I use the container ID E768. Okay, then it will remove. Okay, so it is saying image is being referenced in multiple repositories. So I'll just use rm-f. Okay, so everything is done. Now, if someone wants to pull my image, they'll just go to the Docker Hub, copy this pull command, and then they'll paste it in the terminal. That's it. So they can pull this image. So in my local machine already it is there, so that's why it is not pulling. So you, even if you go back to your repository, okay, you can also see how many times your image has been pulled, this count. See, 10 times this image has been pulled. That's it for this video, guys. If you like our video, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and joining our Facebook group. The links are given in the description below. You can also scan the QR codes being displayed in this video. And for any training requirements, you can join our Telegram channel where we post regular updates on our upcoming trainings. You can also WhatsApp us on the number being shown here. You can also drop us an email for any kind of training inquiries. Thank you.